Texas is back after a trip to the college football playoff. If they can follow up in 2024 with another really successful season, I think we can say, yes, Texas is back. So we're going to go through all of the games for the 2024 schedule. I'll give you my predictions. First, just some thoughts on this team. So I think offensively, Texas, they might be the best, most complete offensive team in the country. Really no weaknesses on this team. They are A+ at quarterback, A+ at running back, A+ at wide receiver, offensive line as well. I mean, this team is just absolutely loaded offensively. There are some question marks on the defense. I don't think they're huge question marks. The cornerback position definitely is a concern. I don't think they're going to be great there, but the rest of the defense should be at least solid. I don't think they're going to be bad anywhere else. Yeah, it's probably not going to be quite as good of a defense as they had last season, but it's still going to be solid. And I think with the elite offense that they have, this team is going to be one of the best teams in the country. So let's get to the schedule and the predictions. Vegas has them at 10.5 wins. So 10 or 11 wins, the most likely scenario according to their over-under win total. I think that's pretty accurate. You look at Michigan, you look at Oklahoma, Georgia, Texas A&M, maybe Kentucky. You know, they're going to be favored in most of their games outside of those games. If they have really, we could say 4 really tough games, and if they split those games, they would go 10-2. But I think they're going to be favored in most of those games, 3 out of those 4 games. So 11-1 definitely a possibility as well. I think it's going to be tough for them to go undefeated with this schedule unless the defense just really steps up and is better than I expect them to be. Because, you know, they do get Georgia at home, and that's big. But Michigan is on the road, Texas A&M's on the road. It's going to be a pretty tough schedule. So let's just jump right in, and we'll start with Colorado State. You know, this is not a bad team at the Group of 5 level, but Texas just has so much more talent. I don't see this game really being close at all. I think the Longhorns win big there. And then there's the big showdown, week 2 on the road at Michigan, September 7th. This is going to be a huge game. You're talking about the defending national champions, the Michigan Wolverines, against Texas here, a team that figures to be a preseason top 5 team, maybe top 3. Michigan home field advantage here, that's going to help them out, and they're going to have a really good defense. But I think, in my opinion, elite offense still beats elite defense, and I think Texas will still be able to score even against a good Michigan defense. Now, they're not going to score 30-40 points, but I think they can at least get into the 20s in this game. And I don't know that Michigan's offense can do that against a good defense. I really don't. And again, I don't think Texas is going to have an elite defense, but it's going to be solid. I think it's going to be good enough. The home field advantage could swing this. It could be enough to get Michigan the win. Maybe their defense comes out extra inspired. They play really well. They get a defensive turnover, something like that. Michigan can win this game. I just don't really see that happening. I think the offense for Michigan is going to be, you know, the strength is going to be the run game, and that's really not the weakness of the Texas defense like I talked about. It's really, it's the secondary. I don't think Michigan's really going to be able to challenge this Texas secondary and take advantage of that. So I think Texas probably winds up winning this game by a couple of scores. I'm going to go Texas, maybe like a 27-13 type score over Michigan. Then they get UTSA and ULM after that. Really no reason to expect this team to lose either one of those games. I think they'd win both of them, and they get to 4-0 before playing Mississippi State. Their very first SEC game. Pretty nice way to start. You get a home game against Mississippi State, who probably is going to be, I think, the second worst team in the SEC. So that should be an easy win for Texas as well. And I've got them starting 5-0 going into their bye week, and then they play Oklahoma on October 12th. Boy, this is always a great game. Oklahoma got the win last year in a game that really could have gone either way. You look at this Oklahoma defense, it's going to be really good. It might be, I don't want to say this for sure, but it might be the best offense in the SEC in Texas against the best defense in Oklahoma. I know Georgia has something to say about that. I know Alabama. I know there are other teams, and I'm not saying Oklahoma definitely has the best defense, but they will have a chance to have the best defense in the SEC. They're going to be really good. So that's the matchup. Great on great, and can't wait to see how it plays out. And then on the flip side, you know, I do think Texas has an advantage with their defense going up against the Oklahoma offense, unless Jackson Arnold turns out to be just a superstar. And, you know, it's hard to say right now if he will. The Oklahoma offensive line is a bit of a concern. I think Texas will have an advantage with their defensive line, and I think that's going to be the difference. Again, I think it's kind of a stalemate with the Texas offense against the Oklahoma defense, but slight advantage to the Texas offense. Like I said, I think elite offense beats elite defense, and then the advantage for Texas on the other side. I'm going to go with Texas, but in these games, these rivalry games, especially this one, anything can happen, and I wouldn't be surprised at all if Oklahoma did win. We got Georgia coming up the next week on October 19th. You know, that's a tough spot for this game for Texas, right after an emotional game against Oklahoma, a hard-fought rivalry game. Just a tough spot on the schedule here. And I think Georgia, they have no question marks. Texas, maybe they have a question mark at cornerback. Georgia has question marks nowhere. I don't think Georgia's offense is going to be quite as good as Texas, but I think their defense is going to be better. And it's a tough one. I think Georgia is able to get this win. Again, I think they're a little bit better in the trenches. I think their offense will have a big day. I think it's a pretty high-scoring game. And Georgia goes on the road, and they knock off Texas here. I've got Texas losing their first game. Then they get Vanderbilt on the road on October 26th. You worry about a little bit of a hangover after a big win over Oklahoma, then a tough loss to Georgia. Then you got to go on the road to sleepy Vanderbilt. Maybe they come out slow, but it shouldn't matter. I think they roll in this game, and they get to 7-1. They'll play Florida the next week. This will be you'll be back home. Actually get a bye week between Vanderbilt and Florida. Back home for Florida. This should be a somewhat interesting game for a little bit, but I think Texas will pull away. Their offense is just going to be too much. I don't think Florida can win a shootout. I don't think they're going to be able to keep up. Texas will roll here and win by at least a couple of scores. Then they've got Arkansas on November 16th. And Arkansas, I believe, was the last time they played, really got the better of this Texas team. That doesn't matter. I know people are going to point to that game. It's totally different rosters, totally different teams. I do think Arkansas will come out inspired in this game, playing at home. Sam Pittman will have them fired up, ready to go. They will play hard. They'll be physical in this one. And maybe they frustrate Texas for a half, but I don't think they're going to be able to do it for 4 quarters. I think Texas will pull away in the second half. And I think they win it by a couple of scores at least. But, not a blowout. I think, again, Arkansas will hang around for a little bit, and they'll probably try to slow this game down, run the football, but it's not going to work. Texas will win. And then we've got Kentucky on November 23rd at home. If the Arkansas game does turn out to be a little closer than you would expect, and then you've got Texas A&M and a big rivalry game the next week, this is another game where Texas could come out a little bit slow. Good news is it's a home game, but Kentucky's got a good defense. It's going to be a good team, and I think they challenge Texas a little bit here in this game. Another one of those games that's close at halftime, but I do think Texas will pull away in the second half, and they get the win here in this one. Now, we've got Texas A&M rivalry game. We haven't seen it in a while, and we finally get this rivalry back. I cannot wait for this matchup. It is on the road. That's going to favor Texas A&M, and I'm really high on this Texas A&M team. I think they're going to be really good. I think Mike Elko, with him as the coach and the talent they have on the roster, they are going to be a top 25 team. I really feel that way. And so you look at the matchup. Texas A&M's linebackers, that could be a concern. I think Texas has some success running the football. They're just a better overall team. While I think Texas A&M at home will play inspired in this rivalry game, and I think it's going to be close, I think Texas will find a way. This is a team that won some big games last year. They made it to the college football playoff. They're battle-tested. A lot of those guys back. They're able to go on the road and squeak by in a close game. I mean, this one might come down to a game-winning field goal, but I like Texas to get the win over Texas A&M and finish 11-1. So that's my prediction here. I think 10-2 is very possible. Again, when you look at the Michigan game, you look at the Oklahoma game, you look at Texas A&M game, they could definitely lose one of those. But they could also beat Georgia. I mean, this is a team that's capable of beating Georgia, and so I'm going with 11-1. I think it's a really good season for Texas once again. Probably enough to get them to the SEC championship. Although, if they've got one loss, if Georgia's got one loss, and then maybe a team like Alabama or Ole Miss has one loss, could come down to tiebreakers. But Texas should be in a good position there again at 11-1. Would love to get your thoughts on this team, your predictions for Texas. Let me know what you think down in the comments below.